Book 17, Stranger at the Gates. When young Dawn, with her rose-red fingers, shone once more, Telemachus strapped his rawhide sandals to his feet, and the young prince, the son of King Odysseus, picked up the rugged spear that fit his grip, and striking out for the city, told his swineherd, "I'm off to town, old friend, to present myself to mother. She'll never stop her bitter tears in the morning. Well I know, till she faces me and sees me face to face. And for you, I have some orders. Take this luckless stranger to town, so that he can beg for his supper there, and whoever wants can give him the man some crumbs and a cup to drink. How can I put up with every passer-by? My mind is weighed down with troubles. If the stranger resents it, all the worse for him. I like to tell the truth and tell it plainly." Subtle Odysseus broke in, "My friend, I have no desire myself to linger here. Better that beggars cage their meals in town than in the fields. Some willing soul will see to my needs. I'm hardly fit at my age to keep to a farm and jump to a foreman's every order. So go on then. This man will take me as you've told him. Once I'm warm with the fire and the sun's good and strong, look at the clothing on my back, all rags and tatters. I'm afraid the frost as town could do me in. And town, you say, is a long hard way from here." At that, Telemachus strode down through the farm in quick, firm strides, brooding death to his suitors. And once he reached his well-constructed palace, propping his spear against a sturdy pillar, and crossing the stone threshold, in he went. His old nurse was the first to see him, Eurycleia, just spreading fleeces from over the carved, inlaid chairs. Tears sprang to her eyes. She rushed straight to the prince, as the other maids of great Odysseus' flock around him, hugged him warmly, kissed his head and shoulders. Now down from her chamber came discreet Penelope, looking for all the world like Artemis or golden Aphrodite, bursting into tears as she flung her arms around her darling son, and kissed his face, and kissed his shining eyes, and sobbed, "You're home, Telemachus." Words flew from her heart. "Sweet light of my eyes, I never thought I'd see you again. Once you shipped to Pylos, against my will so secret, out for news of your dear father. Quick, tell me, what did you catch sight of the man? Did you meet him, or what?" "Please, mother," steady Telemachus replied, "don't move me to tears. Don't stir the heart inside me. I've just escaped from death. Sudden death. No. Bathe now. Put on some fresh clothes. Go up to your own room with your serving women and pray, and promise the gods a generous sacrifice to bring success, if Zeus will ever grant us the hour of our revenge. I myself am off to a meeting grounds to summon up a guest who came up with me from abroad when I sailed home. I sent him on ahead with my trusted crew. I told Piraeus to take him to his house and treat him well, hoist him with some goodwill till I could come myself." Words to the mark, that left his mother silent. She bathed now, and put on some fresh clothes, and prayed and promised the gods a generous sacrifice, to bring success, if Zeus could ever grant the hour of their revenge. Spear in hand, Telemachus strode on through the hall and out, and a pair of sleek hounds were trotting at his heels, and Athena lavished a marvelous splendor on the prince, so the people all gazed in wonder as he came forward. The swaggering suitors clustered milling around him, welcome words on their lips and murder in their hearts. But he gave them a wide berth as they came crowding in, and there where the mentor sat, Antiphaeus, Heliostheres too, his father's loyal friends from days gone by. He took his seat as they pressed him with their questions, and just then Piraeus, the gallant spearman, approached, leading the stranger through the town and out into the meeting grounds. Telemachus, not hanging back, went right up to greet Theoclymenus, his guest, but Piraeus spoke out first. "Quickly now, Telemachus, send some women to my house to retrieve the gifts that Menelaus gave you." "Wait, Piraeus," wary Telemachus cautioned. "We've no idea how all this will go. If the brazen suitors cut me down in the palace, off guard, and carve apart my father's whole estate, I'd rather you yourself or one of my friends here keep the gifts and get some pleasure from them. But if I can bring down the slaughter on that crew, you send the gifts to my house and we'll share the joy." Their plan made, he led the wayworn stranger home, and once they reached the well-constructed palace, spreading out their cloaks on a chair or bench, into the burnished tubs they climbed and bathed. When women had watched them, rubbed them down with oil, the drawn warm fleece and shirts around their shoulders, out of the baths they stepped and sat in high-backed chairs. A maid brought water soon in a graceful gold pitcher, and over the silver basin tipped it out so they might rinse their hands, and then pulled a gleaming table to their side. A staid housekeeper brought on bread to serve them, appetizers aplenty too, and lavished with her bounty, Penelope sat across from her son. beside a pillar, leaning back on a low chair and winding fine-spun yarn. They'd reached out for good things that lay at hand, and when they put desire for food and drink, the queen, for all her composure, sat at last. Telemachus, I'm going back to my room upstairs and lie down on my bed. That bed of pain my tears have streaked, year in and year out, from the day Odysseus sailed to Troy with Atreus' 2 sons. But you never had the heart, before those insolent suitors crowd back into our house, to tell me clearly about your father's journey, if you have heard any news. Of course, mother, thoughtful Telemachus reassured her quickly. I will tell you the whole true story now. We sailed to Pylos, to Nestor, the great king, and he received me there in his lofty palace, and treated me well and warmly. Yes, as the father treats a long-lost son who's home voyaging years abroad. Such care he showered on me, he and his noble sons. But of strong, enduring Odysseus, dead or alive, he's heard no news. He said, from any man on earth. He sent me on to the famous spearman Atreus Menelaus, on with a team of horses and drawing a bolted chariot. And there I saw her, Helen of Argos. All for her Achaeans and Trojans suffered so much hardship, thanks to the gods' decree. The lord of the war cry Menelaus asked at once what pressing need had brought me to lovely Lacedaemon, and when I told him the whole story, first to last, the king burst out. How shameful! That's the bed of a brave man of war, that they'd crawl inside, those spineless, craven cowards. Weak as the doe that beds down her fawns in a mighty lion's den, her newborn suckling then trails off to the mountain spurs and grassy bends, to graze her fill, and back the lion comes to his own lair, and the master deals both fawns a ghastly bloody death. Just what Odysseus will deal that mob, a ghastly death. Ah, if only Father Zeus, Athena, and Lord Apollo, that man who years ago in the games of Lesbos rose to Miltiades' challenge, wrestled him, pinned him down with one tremendous throw, and that the Argives roared with joy. If only that Odysseus sported with those suitors. A blood wedding, a quick death would take the lot. But about the things you've asked me so intently, I'll skew and sidestep nothing, and not deceive you ever. Of all he told me, the old man in the sea, who never lies, I'll hide and hold nothing back, not a single word. He said he'd seen Odysseus on an island, ground down in misery, off in a goddess's house, the nymph Calypso who holds him there by force. He has no way to voyage home to his native land, no trim ships to reach, no crew to ply the oars, or send him scudding over sea broads back. So Menelaus, the famous spearman, told me, my mission accomplished, back I came at once, and the god sent me a stiff, flowing wind that sped me home to the native land I love. His reassurance stirred the queen to her depths, and the godlike seer Theoclymenus added firmly, nobly, lady, wife of Laertes' son Odysseus, Menelaus can have no perfect revelations. Mark my words. I will make you a prophecy, quite precise, and I'll hold nothing back. I swear by Zeus, the first of all gods, by this table of hospitality here my host, by Odysseus' hearth, where I have come to help. I swear Odysseus is on native soil, here and now, poised and on the prowl. Learning of these rank crimes, he's sowing seeds of ruin for all your suitors. So clear and so true, that bird sign I saw as I sat on the bench ship and sounded out the future of the prince. If only, my friend, reserved Penelope exclaimed, everything you say would come to pass. You soon know my affection and know my gifts. Any man you meet would call you blessed. And so the three confided in the halls, while all the suitors before Odysseus' palace amused themselves with discus and long-throwing spears, out on the leveled grounds, and free and easy as always, full of swagger. When the dinner hour approached and the sheep came home from pastures near and far, driven by familiar drovers, Medon called them all, their favorite herald, always present at their meals. My young lords, now you've played your games to your heart's content, come back to the hall so we can fix your supper. Nothing's better than dining well on time. They came at his summons, rising from the games now and bustling into the well-constructed palace, flinging down their clothes on a chair or bench. They butchered hulking sheep and fatted goats, full-grown hogs and a young cow from the herd, preparing for their feast. At the same time, the king and loyal swineherd geared to leave the country for the town. Eumaeus, foreman of men, set things in motion. Friend, I know you're keen on going down to town today, just as the master bid, though I'd rather you stay here and guard the farm. But I prize the boy, and I fear he'll blame me later. A dressing down from your master is hard to bear, so off we go now. The shank of the day is past. You'll find it colder with nightfall coming on. I know. I see your point, the crafty man replied. There's sense in this, old head, and so let's be off. And from now on, you lead me the way. Just give me a stick to lean on. And if you have one ready cut, you say the road is treacherous, full of slips and slides. With that, he flung his beggar sack across his shoulders, torn and tattered, slung from fraying rope. Eumaeus gave him a staff that met his needs, and then the two moved out, leaving behind them dogs and herdsmen to stay and guard the farm. And so the servant led the master toward the city, looking for all the world like an old and broken beggar, hunched on a stick, his body wrapped in shameful rags. Down over the rugged road they went till hard by town they reached a stone-rimmed fountain running clear, where the city people came and drew their water. Ithacus built it once, with Nereidus and Polysator. Round it stood, and poplar thrived in the dank soil, all in the nestling ring and down to the rock ledge overhead. The cold water splashed in the crowning fountain rose to an altar stone erected to the nymphs, where every traveler paused and left an offering. Here Dolius' son, Melanthius, crossed their path, herding his goats with a pair of drovers help, the pick of his flocks to make the suitors' meals. As soon as he saw them, he broke into a flood of brutal and foul abuse that made Odysseus' blood boil. "Look," he sneered, "one scum nosing another scum along. Dirt finds dirt by the will of God, it never fails. Wretched pig boy, where do you take your filthy swine, this sickening beggar who licks the pots of feasts, hanging around the doorpost and rubbing his back and scavenging after scraps? No hero's swords and cauldrons, not for him. Hand him over to me, I'll teach him to work a farm and muck out the stalls, pitch feed to the young goats, whey to drink that will put the muscle on his hams. Oh no, he's learned his lazy ways too. He's got no itch to stick it to good hard work. He'd rather go scrounging from the countryside, begging for crusts to stuff his greedy gut. Let me tell you, so help me, it's the truth. If he sets foot in King Odysseus' royal palace, salvos to footstools flung at his head all by all the lords will crack his ribs as he runs a line of fire through the house." Wild, reckless taunts, and just as he passed Odysseus, the idiot lurched out with a heel and kicked his hip, and he couldn't knock the beggar off the path. He stood his ground so staunchly. Odysseus was torn. Should he wheel with his staff and beat the scoundrel senseless, or hoist him by the midriff and split his skull on the rocks? He stilled himself inside, his mind in full control, but Eumaeus glared at the goatherd and cursed him out in his face, then lifted up his hands and prayed his heart out. "O nymphs of the fountain, daughters of Zeus, if Odysseus ever burned you your long thighs of lambs or kids covered in rich fat, now bring my prayer to pass. Let that man come back, some god guide him now. He'd toss to the winds the flashy show you make, Melanthius, so cocksure, always strutting around the town while worthless fields hand leave your flocks in shambles." "Listen to him," the goatherd shouted back. "All bark and no bite from the vicious mutt. One fine day I'll ship him out in a black lugger miles from Ithaca and sell him off for a good stiff price. Just let Apollo shoot Telemachus down with a silver bow today in the halls, or in the suitor snuff out his life. As sure as I know the day the king's return is blotted out, the king is worlds away." With his parting shot he left them trudging on, and went and reached the royal house in no time. Slipping in, he took his seat among the suitors, and facing Eurymachus, who favored him the most, the carvers set before him a place of meat, and staid housekeeper brought the man his bread. And now at last the king and loyal swineherd, drawing near the palace, halted just outside as the lyre's rippling music drifted around them, Phemius striking up a song for the assembled guests, and the master seized his servant's hand, exclaiming, "Friend, what a noble house! Odysseus' house it must be. No mistaking it. You could tell it's amongst a townful. Look." One building linked to the next, and the courtyard wall is finished off with a fine coping in the double doors. Are battle-proof, no man could break them down. I can tell the crowd is feasting there in force. Smell the savor of roast, the ringing lyre. Listen, the lyre of the gods has made the friend of feast. "An easy guess," you said, Eumaeus swineherd. "For a man as keen as you at every turn. Put heads together. What do we do next? Either you the first one in the palace mix with the suitors and leave me where I am, or if you like, stay put and I'll go first myself. Don't linger long. Someone might spot you out here outside and knock down or pelt you. Mark my words and take care." The man who'd borne long years abroad replied, "Well, I know. Remember, there's sense in this old head. You go in you first, while I stay out here behind. Stones and blows and I are hardly strangers. My heart is steeled by now. I've had my share of pain in the waves of wars. Add this to the total. Bring the trial on. There's no way to hide the belly what the belly hungers. What a curse. What mischief it brews in all our lives. Just for hunger we rig and ride our long-bent ships to the barren salt sea, speeding death to enemies." Now as they talked on, a dog that lay there lifted his muzzle and pricked his ears. It was Argos, long-enduring Odysseus' dog. He trained as a puppy once, but little joy he got since all too soon he shipped off to sacred Troy. In the old days, young hunters loved to set him coursing after the wild goats and deers and hares, but now, with his master gone, he lay there, cast away on piles of dung from mules and cattle, heaps collecting out before the gates till Odysseus' serving men could cart it off in the manure of the king's estates. He's infested with ticks, half dead from neglect. Here lay the hound, old Argos. But the moment he sensed Odysseus standing by, he thumped his tail, nuzzling low, and his ears dropped, though he had no strength to drag himself an inch toward his master. Odysseus glanced to the side and flicked away a tear, hiding it from Eumaeus, diverting his friend in a hasty offhand way. Strang Eumaeus, look at that dog, like us, lying here on a dunghill. What handsome lines, but I can't say for sure if he had the running speed to match his looks, or he was only the sort that gentry spoil at table, show dogs and masters pampered to their points. You told the stranger Eumaeus, loyal swineherd. Here, it's all too true. Here's the dog of a man who died in foreign parts. But if he had now the form and flair he had in his glory days, as Odysseus left him, sailing off to Troy, you'd be amazed at such speed and such strength. No quarry he chased in the deepest, darkest woods could ever slip his hound. A champion tracker, too. But he's run out of luck now, this poor fellow. His master's dead and gone, so far from home, and the heartless women tend to him not at all. Slaves with their lords no longer there to crack the whip, lose all zest to perform their duties well. Zeus, the old thunderer, robs a man of half his virtue, the day the yoke clamps down around his neck. With that he entered the well-constructed palace, strode through the halls and joined the proud suitors. But the dark shadow of death closed down on Argos' eyes, the instant he saw Odysseus, 20 years away. Now Prince Telemachus, first by far to note, the swineherd coming down the hall, nodded briskly and called and waved him on. Eumaeus, glancing about, picked up a handy stool, where the carver always sat, slicing meats for the suitors, feasting through the house. He took and put it beside the prince's table and faced him, straddling it himself as a steward set a plate of meat before the man and served him bread from trays. Right behind him came Odysseus, into his own house, looking for all the world like an old and broken beggar. Hunched on a stick, his body wrapped in shameful rags, just in the doorway, just into the ashwood threshold. There he settled down, leaning against the cypress post, a master joiner, plain smooth and hung with a plumb lying years ago. Telemachus motioned the swineherd over now, and choosing a whole loaf from a fine wicker tray, and as much meat as outstretched hands could hold, he said, Now take these to the stranger, and tell him, too, to make the rounds of the suitors and beg from one and all. Bashfulness, for a man in need, is no great friend. And Eumaeus did his bidding, went straight up to the guests, and winged a greeting. Here, stranger, Prince Telemachus sends you these, and tells you too to make the rounds to the suitors. Beg from one and all. Bashfulness for a beggar, he says, is no great friend. Powerful Zeus, the crafty king responded, grant that your prince be blessed among mankind, and all his heart's desires come to pass. Taking the food in both hands, settling down and spread it in the filthy sack before his feet, the beggar fell to his meal, as the singer raised a song throughout the house, and once he'd supped, and stirring bard had closed, the suitor broke into her uproar down along the hall. And now Athena came to the side of Laertes' royal son and urged him, Go now, gather crusts from all the suitors, test them, so we can tell the innocent from the guilty. But not even so would Athena save one man from death. But still, off he went, begging from each in turn, circling left to right, reaching out his hand, like a beggar from the day that he was born. They pitied him and gave him scraps, and were puzzled too, asking each other, Who is this? Where's he from? Till the goatherd Melanthius shouted out from their midst, Listen to me, you lords who court our noble queen. I'll tell you about the stranger. I've seen him before. I know for a fact the swineherd let him in, though I have no idea who the fellow is, or where he thinks he come from. At that, Antonius wheeled to Eumaeus, lashing out at him. Your Highness, swineherd, why drag this to town? Haven't we got a share of vagabonds to deal with, disgusting beggars who lick the feasters' plates? Isn't it quite enough, these swimming crowds consuming your master's bounty? Must you invite this rascal in the bargain? Antonius, highborn as you are, you told the man Eumaeus, that was a mean, low speech. Now who go out and who on his own hook, not I, and ask a stranger in from nowhere, unless he have the skills to serve the house? A prophet, a healer who cures disease, a worker in wood, or even a God-inspired bard whose singing warms the heart? They're the ones asked around in the world. A beggar? Who would invite a beggar to bleed his household white? You of all suitors are always the roughest on the servants of our king, and me most of all. Not that I care, no, so long as his wise queen is still alive in the palace. Prince Telemachus too. Stop, Eumaeus, poised Telemachus broke in quickly now. Don't waste so much breath on Antonius here. It's just his habit to bait man with abuse and spur the rest as well. He wheeled on the suitor and letting loose. How kind you are to me, Antonius. Kind as a father to his son, encouraging me to send the stranger packing from my house with a harsh command. I'd never do it, God forbid. Take and give to the beggar, I don't grudge it. I'd even urge you on. No scruples now. Never fear your gifts will upset my mother, or any servant in King Odysseus' royal house. But no such qualm could enter that head of yours, bent on feeding your own face and not feeding strangers. Antonius countered the young prince in kind. So high and mighty, Telemachus, such unbridled rage. Of all the suitors gave him the sort of gift I would give. The house will be rid of him for 3 whole months. With that, from under his table he seized the stool that propped his smooth feet as he reveled on, just lifting it into view. But as for the rest, all gave to the beggar, filled his sack with handouts and bread and meat. And Odysseus seemed at the point to get back to the door sill. Done with the testing of suitors, home free himself, when he stopped beside Antonius, begging face to face. Give me a morsel, friend. You're hardly the worst Achaean here, it seems. The noblest one, in fact. You look like you're a king to me. So you should give a bigger crust than the rest, and I will sing your praises all across the earth. I too once lived in a lofty house that men admired, rolling in wealth. I'd often give a vagabond like myself, whoever he was, whatever need he brought him to my door. The crowds of servants I had, and lots of all it takes to live the life at ease, to make men call you rich. But Zeus ruined it all, God's will, no doubt, when he shipped me off to a roving band of pirates bound for Egypt, a long hard sail to wreck my life. There in the Nile Delta I moored our ships of war. God knows I ordered my trusty crews to stand by, just where they were, and guard the anchored fleet. I sent a patrol to scout things out to the higher land, but swept away by their own reckless fury, the crew went berserk. They promptly began to plunder the lush Egyptian farms and dragged off women and children and killed the men. Outcries reached the city in no time. Stirred by their shouts, the entire town came streaming down at the break of day, filling the river plain with chariots, ranking infantry and gleam of bronze. Zeus, who loves the lighting, flung down murderous panic on all the men at arms. No one dared to stand his ground and fight. Disaster ringed us round from every quarter. Droves of my men they hacked down with swords, led out the rest alive, and labor of them as slaves. And myself, they passed me on to a stranger come their way, to ship me to Cyprus. Asaeus' Demeter it was, who ruled Cyprus then, with an iron fist. And there from I sailed to Ithaca, just as you see me now, ground down by pain and sorrow. Good God Almighty, Antonius cut the beggar short. What spirit brought this pest plague on our feast? Back off, into the open and clear off my table, or you'll soon land in the Egypt, Cyprus, to break your heart. What a brazen, shameless beggar, scrounging food from each man in turn, and look at their handouts, reckless, never qualm, no holding back, not when making free when the next man's goods, each one's got plenty here. Pity, pity, the wry Odysseus countered, drawing away. No sense in your head to match your handsome looks. You'd grudge your servant a pinch of salt from your own larder, you who lounge at the next man's board but lack the heart to tear a crust of bread and hand it on to me, though there's a God with plenty here. Boiling over, Antonius gave him a scathing look and let fly. Now you get out of the hall unscarred, I swear, not after such a filthy string of insult. With that he seized the stool and hurled it. Square in the back it struck Odysseus, just under the right shoulder, but he stood up against it, steady as a rock, unstaggered by Antonius's blow, just shook his head, silent, his mind churning with thoughts of bloody work. Back he went to the doorsill, crouched and sitting down, his sack about to burst, he faced the suitors, saying, Hear me out, you lords who court the noble queen. I must say what the heart inside me urges. There's nothing to groan about, no hurt when a man takes a blow he fights to save his own possessions, cattle or shining flocks. But Antonius struck me, all because of my good-for-nothing belly. That curse that makes such pain for us poor men. But if beggars have the goods and gods and furies too, let Antonius meet his death before he meets his bride. Enough, stranger, Antonius volleyed back. Sit there and eat in peace, or go get lost, or else, for the way you talk, these young men will hurl you down the halls by your hands and feet until you're skinned alive. Naked threats, but the rest were outraged. Even those brash suitors, one would say to another, Look, Antonius, that was a crime to strike the luckless beggar. Your fate is sealed. If he's some god from the blue, And the gods do take the look of strangers dropping in from abroad, disguised in every way as they roam and haunt our cities, watching over us. All our foul play, all our fair play too. So they warned, but Antinius paid no heed, and the anguish welled up in Telemachus' breast for the blow his father took. Yet he let no tears go rolling down his face. He just shook his head silent, his mind churning with thoughts of bloody work. But then, when cautious Queen Penelope heard how Antinius struck the stranger there in the halls, she cried out, with her serving women round her, "May Apollo the archer strike you just as hard," and her housekeeper Irenome added quickly, "If only our prayers were granted, then not one of the lot would live to see Dawn climb her throne tomorrow." "Dear old woman," alert Penelope replied, "they're all hateful, plotting their vicious plots, but Antinius is the worst of all. He's Black Death itself. Here's this luckless stranger wandering down the halls and begging scraps, hard-pressed by need, and the rest all give the man his fill of food. But that one gives him a footstool, hurled at his right shoulder, and hits his back." While she exclaimed among her household women, sitting there in her room, Odysseus bent to supper. Penelope called the swineherd in and gave instructions. "Go, good Eumaeus. Tell the stranger to come at once. I'd like to give him a warm welcome and ask the man if he's heard some news about my gallant husband, or seen him in the flesh. He seems like one who's roved around the world." "My queen," you answered Eumaeus, loyal swineherd. "If only the lords would hold their peace a moment. Such stories he tells, he'd charm you to the depths. 3 nights, 3 days I kept him in my shelter. I was at the first fellow stumbled onto, fleeing from some ship, but not even so could he bring tale of troubles to an end. You know how you could stare at a bard and wonder, trained by the gods to sing and hold men spellbound. How you can long to sit there listening all your life, when the man begins to sing. So he charmed my heart, I tell you, huddling there beside me at the fire. He and Odysseus' father go way back, he says, sworn friends, and the stranger hails from Crete, where the stock of the old King Minos still lives on. And from Crete he made his way, racked by hardship, tumbling like a rolling stone until he turned up here. He swears he's heard of Odysseus, just in reach of Thesprotian country, still alive, laden with treasure, heading home at last." "Go," the cautious queen responded. "Call him here, and so he can tell me his own tale face to face. Our friends can sit at the gates or down the halls and play their games, debauched to their heart's content. Why not? Their own stores, their bread and seasoned wine, lie intact at home, food for their own serving men alone. But they infest our palace night, and they butcher our cattle, our sheep, and our fat goats, feasting themselves sick, swilling our glowing wine, as if there's no tomorrow. All of it squandered. No, there's no man like Odysseus in command, to drive this curse from the house. Dear God, if only Odysseus could come back to native soil now, he and his son would avenge the outrage these men, just like that." At her last words, Telemachus shook with a lusty sneeze, like a thunderclap resounding up and down the halls. The queen was seized with laughter, calling out to Eumaeus winged words, "Quickly go, bring me to the stranger now, face to face. You hear how my son sealed all this with a sneeze? So, let death come down and with grim finality on these suitors, one and all, not a single man escape its sudden doom. And another thing, mark my words, I tell you, if I'm convinced that all he says is true, I'll dress him in a shirt and cloak, and handsome clothes." Off the swineherd went and followed her instructions, made his way to the stranger's side and winged a word. "Old friend, our queen wise Penelope summons you, the prince's mother. The spirit moves her now, heartsick as she is, to ask a question or two about her husband, and if she's convinced that all you say, she'll dress you in a shirt and cloak. That's what you need, that most of all now. Bread you can always beg around the country, and fill your belly well. They'll give you food, whoever has a mind to." "Gladly, Eumaeus," the patient man replied. I'll tell her the whole truth and nothing but. Icarius' daughter, your wise queen Penelope, I know all about that man. It's been my lot to suffer what he's suffered, but I fear the mob's abuse. Those rough young bucks, their pride and violence hit the iron skies. Just now that scoundrel, all I went down the halls harming no one, up and down he dealt me a jolting blow. And who would raise a hand to save me? Telemachus? Anyone else? No one. So tell Penelope now, anxious as she may be, to wait in the halls until the sun goes down, and then when she can ask me all she likes about her husband's journey home. But let her give me a seat close by the fire. The clothes on my back are tatters, and well you know, you are the first I begged for care and shelter." Back the swineherd went, following his instructions. Penelope, just as he crossed her threshold, broke out. "Didn't you bring him? Where's in the vagrant's mind? Fear of someone? Embarrassed by something else? Here in this house? And is the fellow bashful? A bashful man will make a sorry beggar." "You answered your queen, Eumaeus, the little swineherd. He talks to the point. He thinks as the next man would. He wants to dodge their blows, that brutal crew. He tells you to wait here till the sun goes down. It's better for you, my queen. Then you can talk with the man in private and hear the stranger's news. Nobody's fool is that stranger, Wise Penelope said. He sees how things could go. Surely no Menonoj can match the gang for reckless, deadly schemes. And so she agreed, and now the mission accomplished, back the loyal swineherd went to mix with the suitors. Moving next to the prince, he whispered a parting word, their heads close together so no one could hear. Dear boy, I must be off to see the pigs, and the whole farm. You're living, mine as well. You're the one to tend all the things here. Look out for your own skin first. Do take care. You mustn't come to grief. Crowds of your own countrymen plot your death. Let Zeus wipe out the lot that they try to kill us all. Right you are, old friend, the canny prince replied. Now off you go. Once you've had your supper, but come back bright and early. Bring some good sound boars for slaughter. Yes, I'll tend to all things here, I and the deathless gods. And the swineherd sat down on his polished stool, and once he'd supped and drunk to his heart's content, back he went to the pigs, leaving the royal precincts still filled with feasters, all indulging now in the joys of dance and song. The day was over, and dusk was falling.